You know, I've played and taught guitar for more years than I even want to think about. I've studied with and learned from world-class guitarists over that time, and I've picked up so many great things along the way. But looking back, I can pinpoint the one single lesson that had the biggest impact on my playing. And it wasn't even a proper lesson. It was a theory tip on blues guitar soloing that I got from reading an interview by the great Greg Howe. It totally transformed the way that I understood and approached guitar soloing. And it's not just for blues, this works for any type of music. It's helped so many of my students change their playing for the better, and I'm going to show it to you today. Grab your guitar, let's dig right in. Like a lot of guitar players my age, I got into lead guitar by listening to blues rockers like Eric Clapton and Stevie Ray Vaughan. I learned loads of blues licks, mostly minor pentatonic stuff. But then I heard players like Larry Carlton, Robben Ford, Steve Lukather, and they were doing something very different harmonically than the straight blues guys. I could copy their licks, but I didn't really know what they were doing, so I really struggled playing my own solos in that style. And then I read that interview with Greg Howe, and what he had to say totally changed my understanding of music and how to approach soloing. And what he said was, are you ready for this? Think of a blues in A as being in 3 different keys. Most standard blues songs that we listen to use 3 dominant 7 chords. For a blues in A, we call A7 the 1 chord, D7 the 4 chord, and E7 the 5 chord. What Greg pointed out and what made the clouds part is that a dominant 7 chord is actually the 5 chord in one specific key. Look at the chords in the key of A. We've got A major 7, B minor 7, C sharp minor 7, D major 7, E7, F sharp minor 7, G sharp minor 7 flat 5, and we're back to A major 7. So E7 is the 5 chord in that key. But there's no A7 in the key of A, and there's no D7. Mind blown. The A7, well, it's the 5 chord in the key of D major. D7, it's the 5 chord from the key of G major, which means we can think of a blues in A as actually being in 3 keys. D major when we're playing over the A7 chord, G major when we're playing over the D7 chord, and A major when we're playing over the E7. So that's the theory. What does it mean for us from a practical playing standpoint? Well, here's the gold. It means that in addition to all the great blues licks you already know, you can add awesome sounding colors to your playing by seeing each chord in its parent key and substituting arpeggios from those keys into your lines. When we play like that, it adds jazzier flavors, and it makes your blues licks hit that much harder when you do play them. Now that may sound like a lot, but I'm going to start you off easy and we're going to work through this step by step. Let's ease into things by just getting used to playing the 7th arpeggio of each chord in time with the changes. Check this out. Here's a 6-string dominant 7 shape we're going to use for this example. For A7, we have the notes A, C sharp, E, and G. That G is our flat 7, and that's the note that gives the dominant 7 chord its characteristic sound because it's played against a major 3rd. Now we can play all the way up to the C sharp on the high E string. D7 has the notes D, F sharp, A, and C, and E7 has the notes E, G sharp, B, and D. And here's what we're going to do. Starting on the 7th interval of each chord on the D string, we're going to play up to the highest note of the arpeggio on the high E string, descend down to the root on the low E, and then play back up to the 5th, which is going to be on the B string. So that was 8th note triplets over the A7. D7 sounds like this. And E7, well, it sounds like this. And we're going to shorten those 2 chords up in the turnaround, and they'll sound like this. Won't you try it with me over a mid-tempo shuffle groove? Here we go. Okay, just playing the 7th arpeggio of each chord in the changes, that might be opening up some new territory for you already. Hearing that major tonality over a blues, that might be really different if you know mostly minor pentatonic blues licks. And if you're thinking, well, that sounded really stiff, it doesn't sound like blues to me, you're absolutely correct. Keep in mind, we're just doing an exercise designed to give you some new ideas. We're not trying to rip a savage blues solo yet. So let's keep going and build toward that. Hey, and if this video is helping you with some new ideas, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I need to keep growing so I can keep bringing you lessons like this every week. Thanks. What we're going to do next, we're going to go to the 5th interval of each chord and we're going to bring that 7th arpeggio into our licks. Let me show you how. We said A7 is the 5 chord in the key of D major. Here are those chords of D major, and we're focusing on the 5th interval of A7, which is an E note. The chord with an E root in the key of D is E minor 7. So let's play that E minor 7 arpeggio along with A7 and hear what that sounds like. We're going to stick with our 8th note triplet rhythms, and we're going to start E7 at the 7th position on the D note, which is the minor 7th. We're at the 7th fret of the G string. We're going to play D, E, G, B, D, and B. And then we're going to go to that A7th arpeggio. We're going to play from the C sharp at the 9th fret of the high E string to the A, at the 5th fret of the low E, and then ascend back up. We're going to finish on the E note, which is the 5th. It's going to sound like this. Now, we're going to use that same idea with A minor 7 and D7 over the D7 chord. And then B minor 7 and E7 over E7. Make sure you're clear on where those minor 7th chords are coming from. E note is the 5th interval in the A7 chord. A7, we said, is actually from the key of D major. So we take that E note, the chord with an E root in the key of D major, it's E minor 7. D7, we said, comes out of the key of G. The 5th of D is A. The chord that has an A root in the key of G major, it's A minor 7. Lastly, E7. The 5th of E7 is B. We said E7 is the 5 chord in the key of A major. Well, the chord in A major that has a B root, it's B minor 7. Another way of thinking about it, you're just playing the minor 7 a 5th up from the root of each chord. I can still remember the first time I heard this move. It was in a lick by the great Danny Gatton in a song called Red Label on the record 88 Elmira Street. And it didn't make any sense to me then, but I knew it sounded incredible. And at least now I know what he was doing. Let's try this over our shuffle backing track. Have a listen, or better yet, play along. Okay, let's do one more example, and this one leads us into ultimately what we're after, mixing those jazzy arpeggios with a more traditional blues sound. Remember when I said that playing these more complex ideas makes your blues licks hit that much harder? You're going to start to hear it in this example. For this last example, we're going to go to the flat 7 of each of our dominant 7 arpeggios and pull the new arpeggio from there. So G is the flat 7 of A7. A7 comes from the key of D, and the G chord in the key of D is G major 7. C, it's the flat 7 of D7. We said that D7 comes from the key of G, and the C chord in the key of G, C major 7. E7 comes from the key of A, and the D note is the flat 7 of E7. The D chord in the key of A, D major 7. Another way to think about that, we're simply using the major 7 chord a whole step below the root of each dominant 7 chord. That's the shortcut. Now we're going to pair these major 7 arpeggios with the minor 7 arpeggios from the last example. Over A7, play this E minor 7, and then this G major 7 shape. And now here's where it gets exciting. I said we'd start mixing in traditional blues licks. So we're going to follow G major 7 with a run using the A major blues scale. And here's that lick. And when we put it all together with our 8th note triplets, it sounds like this. One really cool thing about this lick is how it flows. Blues licks are usually jagged and vocal sounding. That's what makes them so expressive. But these arpeggio lines are smooth and liquid. That contrast is why mixing the two has so much impact. Over D7, we're going to play A minor 7, C major 7, and then D major blues scale pattern. Then in the turnaround, we just have time to play D major 7 and E7, C major 7 and D7. And then finish again with that E minor 7 and G major 7 going into the A blues lick. Let's give this one a whirl. Now these are some great sounds, but like we said before, these examples, they're deliberately stiff and clinical. They're meant to get you thinking about what's possible and to get some new notes under your fingers. Turning these concepts into usable licks, well, that's the logical next step. We're probably not going to run a full 6-string arpeggio inside a blues solo. And if we do, it's not going to sound like the blues. But what if we mixed smaller parts of those arpeggios with something authentically bluesy? Here are a few ideas. Over A7, we can outline E minor 7th at the 7th position, slide up and play F sharp and D from G major 7, and then a bluesy A minor lick up in the 12th position. Or try this, we've got an E minor triad up here in about the 17th position with B, G, E, and then we're going to play G major 7, and then flow right into an A sus4 arpeggio, and resolve that with something bluesy. Here's one more. We could play F sharp, D, and B from G major 7. I'm at the 10th position here. We're going to play G, E, and C sharp from A7. A, F sharp, and D. That's kind of like a G major 9. B, G, and E from E minor 7. And then now we can slide right into A minor pentatonic pattern 1 and cut loose with some blues licks. These are just ideas that came to mind immediately. What I'd encourage you to do, and what I still spend a lot of time doing myself, is to set aside some time every week to come up with licks using these concepts. What if for the next month you wrote 5 new licks a week? By the end of the month, you'd have 20 new licks to work into your playing. And that's where these ideas become part of you. Playing these licks over backing tracks, playing them at different tempos, playing them at different keys, playing them in different spots on the guitar. Really ingraining them into your musical DNA. Before you know it, you'll be improvising lines like this on the fly, and that is a genuinely fun place to be. Now, I really hope you enjoyed and got something out of this video. If you did, you'll love this one that is full of other advanced blues soloing ideas. And as always, work hard, have fun with that guitar. I'll see you next week.